All right, Chicago Open recap. This is round number 3. JD's 2-0, and we're going to start with his game. I'm 1-1, and we will do my game after this. All right, take it away, JD.
Yeah, so like going into the game, like I thought I was playing a different opponent than I was. So that we posted the pairings and we went in. I was supposed to be playing a guy named Robert Sachs, and so like I kind of had minimal amount of prep work, at least some mental prep work of who I thought I was going to be playing. And I went down to check my board number, totally different opponent, and
Mm-hmm.
like so I was a little bit thrown off. And then so the game starts, and like it was sort of hilarious because like I ended up instead Robert Sachs. We looked at he's like a retiree, and I ended up playing like this young kid, and like so like he makes his move, and he's sitting there like just like dancing in his seat like the whole time like and he's playing like almost instantaneously, and I was happy to see d4 d5 because like I really prefer these classical d4 d5 structures as opposed to like a Grunfeld
Mm-hmm.
or even the King's Indian. Like I really just prefer the classical structure. I was happy to see this, and then I played this, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is supposed to be bad. We just take, and then in the chess goals course we have both of these captures covered, and then. And I know that if they play knight takes, we can get into kind of a Grunfeld thing, which I don't really like the Grunfeld too much. But like he surprised me with g6 immediately,
Yeah.
and I was like, damn, I don't. Now I'm in a Grunfeld, and I'm in a Grunfeld that's not the course line.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right. So I spent a long time like trying to think through like what are all the different like Grunfeld positions I know, and which one of them am I in,
Yeah.
and try to get my bearings. And like I couldn't figure out how to. Okay, I mean, if I should have probably just gone to like the most. I could have. This is the one I knew I could enter, but I assumed this is what he wants. Like this is like the most mainline Grunfeld of all time. I don't really know it that well and didn't want to go into it. Uh, and I remember, and ultimately, what like did the decision for me, I was like, I remember someone telling me that they had a friend that played a Grunfeld and they gave it up because of the Bishop F4 lines.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was like, all right, I can't figure out how to get into any other lines. I'm just gonna go for that and see what happens.
I think I told you that.
Yeah.
My friend, he didn't like playing against Bishop
So I
F4.
made a decision that had almost nothing to do with what was on the board. For although when I looked at this afterwards, and this is a like I don't know why this move didn't occur to me. I should always be looking at checks, and I didn't. And this check actually just holds the pawn on d5. If they try to play bishop here, I just come back. I'm attacking this. They block their own defense of the queen. The queen now defends it, and I'm ready to play knight c3 and e4, and I just have a clean extra pawn.
And this is a thematic idea in the Caro-Kann Panov.
Yeah.
Not in our course, because the lines we play are a little bit different, but I used to play a line where you would give them d5, and this kind of like check and queen back to b3 is a very common idea to hold that c pawn.
Yeah, and if the check, like if he just does, oh, I just take, and then if he takes back, I can even just hold the pawn, and I'm just up a clean pawn.
Yeah.
And so this is like I'm already getting into my biggest takeaway of this game was like I spent so much time like trying to like think of lines instead of like spending some actual time just looking at the board
Yeah,
and
right.
like thinking about what the board presents.
Play,
So
play the board, not the opening.
yeah, so I ended up playing knight f3, still thinking we had some chances that we might like transpose. I even thought about just playing h4, like right here, just h4. And actually, I see it's cropping up into computer moves. Like
Yep.
it's the second best move. I probably
It's h4, h5. Just keep pushing it.
yeah, just go for that. And so instead, I decided to play this, and this is actually probably quite bad because he just takes, and I got to move the bishop again. And now I'm like, at first I thought I was going to be happy with having my bishop here because I was like, oh, maybe I'll go against this, but no, he just castles. I played e3. Probably didn't. I just wanted to get my other bishop out, and I was like, oh, maybe. Again, like I just played this on impulse, but like if I'm gonna have to move the bit, why not here?
Yeah.
Like I would love to trade that bishop off. Like why
He
not?
probably has to retreat his knight now. Knight back to f6.
Yeah. So again, like this bishop d3 is kind of lazy and passive. Come out and he plays c5 immediately, and like this is scary. It's
Yeah.
hard to deal with.
Well, and he's castled. It's just a little uncomfortable. You're down in development, and the action's on the queen side,
Yeah.
and your g3 bishop is kind of on the wrong side of the board.
Yeah. It's bad. So the decision I made here was to I played this. He dropped back. I dropped back, and he took. And I planned all along that when he took, I was going to take back with the knight because I didn't want the isolated queen pawn against this fianchetto bishop.
Mm-hmm.
But I was worried that if I played this, that he would have this move, and I was like, he can force
Yeah.
the IQP now, because I can't. Well, I tried to look at like this kind of stuff, but like this is just no good. I don't think.
There was a cool tactic there. Computer said bishop e5.
Oh, bishop e5.
That's clever.
Okay, and if they're here,
Take...
oh now,
Oh, it's mate.
oh,
That's great.
okay. Well, I didn't see bishop e5. But okay, bishop e5, and though like if he just takes, I mean,
You're up a piece.
Oh, okay, yeah, this is totally winning.
That's a cool tactic.
Okay, I guess
So he can't take b2, I guess, is the
he
thing.
can't take b2.
But he can take c6.
Yeah, I mean, okay,
And he's a little better still because...
c6, knight c3. But I think if I had gotten to this, okay, I know I'm not great because, well, he has knight c4. Is the
Yeah, I think
problem.
it's dropping a pawn.
Yeah, I think it's still dropping, but it's dropping a pawn. But I have a pawn to play against.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if I had been able to see that he had to do this,
Yeah, you would have gone for it.
I probably would have gone for it. Like, this is comfortable-ish. So instead I took this because I didn't want to play knight c6. And then here, and I was actually sort of hoping that he was going to get fancy with this kind of a thing, but it just doesn't work. I had my idea, what did I have? Some cute idea.
Straight queens and bishop c7.
Trade queens, bishop c7.
It saves your piece.
Yeah. Well,
You're
I was
up a piece.
Yeah, I was actually I think what I was just going to do was play
Oh, bishop. Yeah, you're right, because b2 is hanging. Still.
Yeah,
B2
yeah,
is
yeah. I think I was just going to play bishop e5, and I was hoping he was going to be fancy with something like that, trying to take on b2. But
Yeah.
I wasn't really hoping. I just didn't like giving up the bishop, but I thought it was the only way. Now he hits me with e5, which I thought was good, and I don't want to play f3 because then e4 comes a tempo. Like I thought it was something like this would happen, and now I've got to deal. But maybe this is probably okay. I can just trade queens and then play e5, and maybe this is
Not bad, yeah.
maybe
it's
this is not
terrible.
bad. I'm okay with this capture, but
And one of your things that you were going for here, you told me earlier, is you wanted to play e4.
yeah,
You wanted to lock in this bishop on g7.
yes,
Right, so picture that pawn being here, the bishop's blocked in. So one of the ideas for JD.
yeah. So I ended up going back knight to e2 because I thought that this would help me deal with. I thought maybe if I can put the pawns on f3 and e4, and then also I was cognizant that I wanted to be able to support a knight here. So he played queen e7, and now I castled, and then the bishop comes out, which I think was an inaccuracy. I didn't comment also. So in addition to his dancing that he's doing the whole time, he's never spent more than like 30 seconds on a move. Like he's moving, he's blitzing out, and like I was kind of optimistic because like I thought this bishop f5 was probably bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought because I played knight g3, and then he comes back, and I was like, woohoo! I get rid of his bishop pair.
This position looks way better than it did 5 moves ago.
Yeah, way, but I felt like he missed an opportunity to like.
Yeah, you're back in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still worse. He's still got pressure, but I was like, I have some hope now.
Yeah.
So now I played e4 because I started to feel like I'm not better, but I started to think I'm probably equal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm still down. I mean, I can't quite be equal because I'm still so far down in development.
But if let's say it's your move here, if you play knight c3, I think you're equal.
Yeah, probably so.
Like you're one move down. So let's see what he does. Can he apply enough pressure quickly?
Yeah, he played here, just attacking the pawn, and so I came out. I'm touching this. I'm defending this. He plays rook d8, which stops me from playing knight c3 because of rook d2.
Right. So if you had that one extra move, if your knight was already on c3 and you were just go rook d1 here,
Or
probably
even
equal.
I play knight d5 actually.
Or yeah, good point. Knight d5.
Yeah, so I kick, which I didn't like this because like now the c3 square is not stable, which ended up being important in the game. Like I didn't really want to play b3 if I didn't have to, but I had to. So here I come out, and like my whole game plan was like, all right, I gotta put a knight on d5. If I can put a knight on d5 and hold it,
Yeah.
I'll be fine. Like if we can trade a set of knights and then put a knight on d5, I think I'm golden. And so I bring the rook in. I don't like this very much anymore because he played bishop h6, which I thought was really, really obnoxious.
Yeah.
I have to play here, and then I thought that he would just do this, and it becomes really sort of awkward for me to. I can't really ever move the knight, and I can't really defend the knight. It's hard to defend the knight anymore.
Can we go back 1 second? We
Yeah.
did look at this kind of cool line last night. Rook c to d1. Even though this knight hangs, there's an issue with the rook getting captured on d8. And if black captures here, you can go knight takes. And I think the idea is this knight heads to e3, and then your rook comes into the game. It's still better for black, but it gets rid of that annoying pin on the c file. Like once you play rook c2, now you're kind of just stuck playing passive,
Yeah.
and it's easy to make a mistake here.
Yeah, yeah. So a6, I guess he just didn't want. He didn't want knight b5, I guess, which I thought about playing, but so
You're playing well though. Like he's playing well to keep pressure on, but you're holding. You're not making any mistakes.
yeah, I thought I like this rook d4 from him. Like I didn't want it, although it's not really best, I guess, but I didn't want to take because I didn't want to give him this like pass pawn.
Yeah.
But I probably should have actually. Like I probably should just do like something like this. Well, I don't know, maybe not. This probably.
I'll put your knight on d1 instead. It's passive, but you're gonna go to b2 and then d3.
Oh,
You're gonna reroute him.
yeah, okay.
And
All
look
right.
at in his b6 knight, you have shut out by your pawns.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's not a bad position.
I guess this would have been more okay. I just felt I don't know. I wasn't sure about this, and I decided not to do that and to go with my game plan, which was to play this or this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my whole what I said way earlier on is if I can put one of the knights, if I can get a knight, if I can hold a knight there, I thought I would be fine. So this is what I was thinking about, and he played Queen D7, which I kind of missed the point. He has a really nice idea, so I played here, and then he hit me with this, which surprised me. I didn't see this.
That was a really nice tactic.
Yeah, this is nice.
It got a brilliant mark on chess.com too.
Yeah, yeah, it's
When we did the
it's quite a
analysis.
nice move. Like, but really, it's not that hard to calculate. But
If you know, so it's one of those positions where if you know there's a tactic here,
Yeah.
like say it's puzzle rush,
yeah,
any 2000 will probably find this.
yeah,
But in the heat of a game, when there's like these constant threats, you do have to kind of be aware, keep checking all the different captures to be able to find it. But this is a really nice tactic. Rook takes c3.
yeah, it is nice. And so I obviously I got to take. Right, there's not really anything other than take.
Yeah.
And he takes here, and I would love if I could do something, anything.
So the problem is rook takes.
I'm getting back rank mated.
Yeah.
He just removed both of my defenders with the back rank, really.
Yep. So if f takes, rook takes here. Like you can't take e3 because rook takes d1. And what you did in the game,
I played rook d3. Yeah.
rook c to d3, it holds everything, but he gets 2 minors for the rook.
Yeah.
And pawns are equal and symmetric. So those 2 minor pieces are looking pretty good.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that he would. I wanted to find a way where I got to keep both rooks.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought if I could find a way to keep both rooks on the board, that's probably the best. So I even considered playing like, I don't know. I thought about playing like this. And
Yeah.
maybe this was best because I looked at like playing here and he's got to move this bishop somewhere. And I was like, maybe I can try to do like something like this.
Yeah.
And go like maybe this was from a practical perspective, perhaps a better way to go.
It's a tough position because there's no good entry points or easy attacking targets for the rooks.
This is like exactly what I did to my second round opponent coming back on
Yeah,
me.
but he started with the position that you wanted to get to. Like
Yeah.
he was like gifted the nice position with the 2 minors.
Yeah. So I play here, he takes, I take, he comes here, and then again I've got to find this is the open file that I have access to, only I don't have access to it. Like it takes me several moves and then I have nothing. Like he's controlling all of these squares on
Yeah.
it. So like
Yeah.
I can't do anything. So I was like, all right, I got to come up with some idea. So I played this one. I was like, I'm making Luft, and like I try to
Makes sense.
here, and I just took, and I kind of expected him. I thought he was gonna play Knight F6, and I was like, I try to do something like
Yeah.
Queen D2, some way of creating some threats, and it just turns out that like there are none.
Yeah.
I think so we didn't make it to the second time control, but like I got down, like I spent, I don't know, 30 minutes like trying to like come up with something, and we got little dancing kid the whole time across the seat from me, and and the worst part, like, so we started with 90 minutes on the clock. He still had like an hour and 15 minutes on his clock at this point. Like he
Wow.
used like
So 30-second increment. So he's doing 30 seconds a move plus just a little bit of time.
yeah, like like averaging like maybe 40 seconds a move,
Mm-hmm.
just flying.
Yeah.
And I'm basically out of time. So I finally I played here. My idea was like, all right, I'm gonna defend this pawn, and like I was like, I'll try to put my pawns on f3 and g4, and then I'll try to swoop in on the h file and do something there. I was like, if I can put everything on light squares, maybe I can pretend like this bishop doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And and then he hit me with this, and I missed it. I didn't realize he was coming to c5. I only looked at f6 because I don't know.
There was not much you could do there. That's the problem.
Yeah, and now it's really kind of like over. I'm losing this pawn and then probably this pawn. Played rook h3 and he just took here. And again, I spent more time thinking, but nothing. There's really these miners are as good as my miners were in the previous game.
Yeah, at the height.
Yeah, I actually like I thought for a second I'd found a saving grace, which is actually like the computer best. I thought I'd play here and he'd take, and I'm like, woohoo, I'm gonna get in. But no, I don't get in. It's just knight c3.
Yeah.
And I don't actually get in. I got kind of excited when I saw rook d2 at first, but it's nothing.
I think that's a good takeaway for the viewers. Like, oftentimes when you see bishop and knight against a rook, the side with the rook will have an extra pawn. So picture, like, if JD had a pawn on d4 and let's say a pawn on h3, it would still be a pretty similar situation to this. Like, one thing that you guys should appreciate as viewers, the bishop and knight tend to just dominate a rook and pawn. Bishop, even though it's 6 points for 6 points, keep that in mind. Bishop and knight is almost always better than rook and pawn, unless the pawn's like about to become a pass pawn. I mean, there's exceptions to every rule, but usually bishop and knight
Yeah.
dominant over a rook.
Yeah, which we've seen this now twice. Once I was
Yep.
on the good side of it, and this time I was on the bad side of it.
Yeah.
So again, like I think that I mean really that my biggest takeaway was just straight out of the opening, and it's this getting into this really unfamiliar position, and I'm kind of disappointed that it never occurred to me to look at the check, because like the check's actually quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just never occurred to me, and I didn't really look at the board, and instead I tried to like remember like ideas, and I was trying to transpose into something I knew rather than like looking at the board, which is something I've recognized I've done many times before.
Yeah. So maybe focused a little bit on the memorization of the openings versus the feel of the position.
Yeah, it's like knight f3 is perfectly natural, and then like here I missed a really good opportunity to have like a super
H4.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, h4 is something I did consider. Like I really like I probably should h4 would totally change the nature of the game,
Yeah.
and probably or queen a4, like both like
I think, yeah, the bishop out to f4, the two things there to think about are the knight immediately attacking it,
yeah.
the first one, but then also the fact that the play is going to be on the queen side.
Yeah.
Like here, I would almost consider putting that bishop back on c1. If you just gave me this position and said white to move,
Yeah.
yeah, bishop e5 is probably the strongest, but I would not be opposed to this over bishop to g3, just because I know that b2 pawn is going to be a potential issue long term. Like
Yeah.
I want that bishop over there to help out.
And I think that bishop c1's probably I think it's one of the engine better moves.
Yeah, oddly enough.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I fell victim to what I just did to somebody else. I just had done to me. So
Yeah. All right, so you're 2-1 through 3 games. Going into this game, I was 1-1, and my opponent's rated about 2,050, and I have the white pieces. So we start out with classical 1d4 course repertoire, and we get a Grunfeld. So we just looked at a
you get
Grunfeld.
a proper Grunfeld, and then he doesn't even play the course line.
I don't play the course lines. This is something that I had been looking at this a little bit recently,
Yeah.
like just looking for some offbeat kind of fun stuff against the Grunfeld. I think it was just the day before this game, actually. And I found this bishop to d2 line really interesting. So bishop to g7, that's common, e4. And now to get sort of a traditional Grunfeld, it would look like take, take, c5. But here you can play d5. and you're offering the trade of the bishop that guards black's king,
Yeah.
and the center is really solid, and it's a space advantage for white. So I kind of liked this line, and I'm like, oh, let's try it. It's a classical game,
Yeah.
and when I played bishop to d2, my opponent went into a bit of a think,
Yeah.
and I felt good about that. I'm like, okay, so we're both out of book, essentially. He
Yeah.
goes knight b6, we're both out of book,
Yeah.
90-minute game, 30-second increment. Yeah, we could just play chess.
Yeah.
Okay, so here he's got double attack on d4. I do have more space, but he has this kind of hyper modern opening pressure coming against the center. So I defend, knight c6. He has triple attack now. I looked at knight f3, but what I didn't like is that all of his pieces are kind of quickly coming into the game, and my center felt just a little bit shaky.
Do you have the d5, knight e5, knight takes knight trick there?
Oh, his king can move.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the king can move. That's why you don't have it. Okay.
Yeah, so I think what I did in the game was okay. I played d5. I was looking at e5 and d5. e5 I didn't like because he gets the real easy bishop to f5, and I'm not going to castle queenside here, and he might castle kingside or queenside,
Yeah.
and I didn't like that either. So I just played pawn to d5, kick his knight. He goes here, and now bishop to d4. And I was happy with this position. This bishop is contesting the one on g7, and my plan is if I can safely get it in, let's play f4,
Yeah.
kick the knight back, because in this position, his minor pieces are kind of trying to figure out where to go. Like, there's not a natural square for that light squared bishop.
Yeah.
And knight to c4 isn't a huge threat. It only attacks the pawn, but then he has superfluous knights, and they're not really doing much after attacking the pawn. So I play f4, bishop g4, bishop e2. And to me, bishop g4 was a very natural move,
Yeah.
but it was a small mistake according to the computer. And I think the reason why is if you look at this position, he develops one piece. I play here, threatening to win that bishop. And after takes, I essentially just got two pieces developed
Yeah.
for his one.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think queen takes e2 was a nice move because at first you have to think like, oh, is this scary because the bishops are lined up, right? You got to watch every knight move
Yeah.
and make sure there's no crazy discovered attack. But if knight here check on f3, I take with knight. If knight d3, I take with queen.
Yeah.
And those are really the only two to calculate. Otherwise, his knight has to just retreat somewhere,
Yeah.
and I can trade dark square bishops.
Okay.
So this was feeling good to me. Take, knight f3. And I thought a lot. I burned a lot of time calculating this type of position. Like, can I go h4, h5? Do I go queenside? Do I go kingside? And it's my takeaway of the whole tournament. I just need to work on calculation, time management, and just being confident in my own calculation. I think that's part of it too. I'm not confident in my lines, and then I sort of bail out.
Yeah.
So I was looking at all these lines, and I just like, okay, I'm going to develop knight f3.
I walked by your board briefly at this position, and I missed his c pawn still, and I was like, oh, it's a Benoni.
Uh-huh.
The white position looks like a Benoni.
Yeah, these pawns, yeah, it looks just like a Benoni structure.
Like if he played c5 and you didn't take en passant, then you like really would have a Benoni.
Mm-hmm.
Except for somehow you traded the c and d pawns.
Right, because in the Benoni lines, we tend to just steamroll white with
Yeah.
these three pawns.
Yeah.
So my opponent plays e5, and this surprised me. And I'm thinking that's got to be a huge mistake. And I'm calculating d takes e, f takes e, knight takes e. I'm looking at all these lines. f5, do I just ignore and castle? In the end, I chose f5.
I don't like f5. I like g3.
I think g3 is good too, especially if you know you're going queenside.
Yeah. I take g3 and then queenside.
And I think my takeaway at this point was I need to be more decisive in my calculation.
Mhm.
I played f5 as almost like a bailout move.
Yeah.
But like we talked about yesterday, if he takes, this is shaky. Like it's not actually as solid as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And if his king goes to h8,
Especially
later,
since he can play e4 right now and you can't take it.
right? Yeah, I got to think about my king in the center and the e file. That's exactly right. So I was a little worried about this after I played f5.
Yeah.
But prior to playing it, I was not worried about it. Okay, so f5, queen e7. Now here what my opponent said after the game, and I agree with him. I need to keep this tension. I keep doing these sort of like,
Yeah, I would play g4th, I think.
yeah, g4 is a great move here. Queenside castle, g4, some move order. and then attack king.
Yeah.
Um, I keep playing these kind of like release the tension moves, and I think it's because of my calculation issues. I feel so shaky with my lines that I don't trust myself to kind of leave that tension. So, takeaway of the tournament so far. Queenside castle. He retreats the knight. So his knight's trying to head to d6. He wants to blockade this pawn and have the knight attack here. So I'm trying to figure out now what's the best way to attack, and I go h4, which I think was a good move. Rook h8. And at this point I played h5, and it's a mistake if black goes for this. But I thought this was really scary for black. Seeing that I'm going to win that pawn with the exposed king.
Yeah.
So
And like his knights have a not necessarily a clear way into the position.
yeah, they're kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
So he did not go for that, but that's what he should have played after h5. He played knight to d6. And at this point, again, JD, I should have kept the tension.
Yeah. I like
G4.
G4 again too because like.
But I took. So I'm never worse after these moves.
Yeah.
But it's like, I get this advantage. I give it away. And then my opponent makes an inaccuracy, giving me that advantage again. And then I give it away.
Yeah.
So we get this back and forth. It's like a little up and down, going from slight advantage to big advantage to slight again. And I'm just not quite finding the right moves. And again, here he makes an inaccuracy. King takes g6. And he said after the game he didn't know why he didn't just take with the f pawn. He said he missed queen f2, actually. So the idea here is I'm going to check, and it's checkmate after queen block and I take. So it's a mate threat, and the only way out is f6.
Yeah.
Trying to run the king. So I check. Oh, sorry. I considered the check, but he goes here. So I played knight h4, and I think this was a good decision.
Yeah. You want to put the knight on f5.
Yep, knight's heading to f5. He retreats, knight f5, take. So now I get this position where I'm really just controlling everything.
You have a nice backwards pawn to attack. He's pretty passively defending it.
Yep, and his knight's not doing much. His queen's tied down to his knight. His queen's guarding this square.
You have d6 ideas.
Yes, that's another good point. I kept looking at, can I play d6, take, and plant my knight on d5, which is a monster outpost.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to think about here, and he goes rook g8, g4. This is kind of a waiting move in a sense, but I'm also thinking if the rooks trade, then maybe I go g5 and really open up this king.
True.
So he takes, I take. This controls the h file. Knight f8. Rook here. I think this, in hindsight, rook f1 was kind of a waste of time. This is move 26. We were both really low on time because we've been calculating all these crazy tactics. I think what I should have played here is king b1. And the reason king b1 is good is because oftentimes on c1, when I start calculating lines, the king falls victim to a quick check.
Yeah.
Wherever this black queen is coming from, sometimes over on this diagonal even. So king b1 is just a useful move, and we can transpose back into the game line, but I saved time. So I went rook f1. The idea here is I'm threatening g5.
Yeah.
If rook takes, queen takes.
Yeah. Nice.
He goes here, and then I move king b1. He goes here, and then I put the rook right back. Right? So I could have saved some time there. I knew his knight was heading to f4.
Yeah.
Rook here. And now I started to feel really confident. If he doesn't go rook g7, this was my idea anyways.
Yeah.
I'm going to check, and if he blocks, rook h8. So he went rook there, I went back. And the problem now for black is if he tries to block with the rook, I have queen here, check.
You just win the rook almost.
Or wait, what was the problem here? Oh, rook h6, I think I was thinking. So it's like just a bit of a maneuvering game. So it doesn't quite win the rook, but
yeah,
that might have actually been a good shot, a good move for him, just to make me prove something.
Yeah.
So he played a6. And one thing to note here is when you're attacking your opponent and they're able to kind of defend every threat, you always want to look for sort of a second threat or second opportunity. That's something I didn't mention, but in the last few moves, I've been looking at these ideas. Can I get the queen here and pick up a pawn or two?
Yeah.
And control his counterplay. So that's another nice thing about king b1 and avoiding some of the checks is sometimes like maybe I want knight b5 and just try to scoop up a free pawn, knowing that his queen can't really leave the defense of important squares around the king. So I'm kind of looking for those queenside pawns. Can I scoop one up and convert in an endgame instead of trying to just checkmate his king out in the middle? Because he has 3 defenders nearby plus the pawns.
Yeah.
Like he's pretty safe. Okay, so a6, I sink the queen in. And now he's got to think about queen e8 and queen f8. He's got to guard those squares. He doesn't want to get checkmated. He runs the king. I repeat one time. So I checked him. He went back, and then I went back. And this was just because we get a bonus at move 40.
Yeah.
And we're at move 33. And I wanted extra time on the clock. All right, so now I grab a pawn. He activates his queen. He's looking at queen g1. But I know this king can run out. I felt pretty safe there. So I take a second pawn. Check, the king moves, and he takes this. Now, the key here, I thought, was don't allow this knight to get to d4.
Yeah.
If that knight gets to d4 with check,
Mm-hmm.
my king might be in some trouble. Like, he has checkmate threats and perpetual threats.
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep my queen and knight both guarding this and make him figure out a way to get that knight into the game. There's no knight e6 because my pawn takes. So I play here. And this was a nice idea, I thought. What I want to do is eventually push this a pawn up the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to figure out where to put the queen where she can guard this square but support the a pawn. And c4 was what I thought was the best square.
Yeah.
When I play rook f8, I felt that the only defense was rook f7. And what I can do is draw his king onto this diagonal so that now when I play queen c4, it's got some nasty threats. I'm threatening just scooping up a pawn with check and returning to this diagonal, defending the square, or discovered check. And this pawn's going to take c7 and turn into a queen.
Yeah.
Oh, I did repeat moves here one time. I checked him and then went back just because now we're move 39. He plays here, and this is move 40. So now we got that bonus half hour. I only had like a minute on the clock before the bonus.
Yeah.
Now I had time to calculate this all out, and I calculated this was perfectly safe. I looked at all the threats with his queen and knight, didn't see anything. I saw he might have this idea of queen d2, knight d3, and queen takes b2.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, I can play king a4. Like, I'm not getting checkmated, and I'm not losing any material.
Yeah.
And he's taking all those moves to set that up. So he goes here, but then I play d6 check, and I think he kind of just underestimated or missed this move, because now if the king moves somewhere, I can take here, and if he goes for this threat, I can actually make a second queen, and after take, I can run my king away.
Yeah, and you're not getting mated.
Yeah. So I was really happy with this game. You know, after the tough loss round 2, it was nice to bounce back. The psychology of it, like right after the game, I wasn't completely happy because I knew my calculation was lacking. Like, I don't have that current.
You didn't dance.
Yeah, I didn't dance. I didn't play fast enough, and I didn't have the confidence in my calculation. I just felt shaky.
Yeah.
So that's something I need to work on for the next few games. But I think like overall, everything was pretty smooth in this game in the sense that I didn't give black any advantage.
Yeah.
And I think the main positive takeaways were, well, keeping the tension was one that I should have done as a constructive takeaway. But the positive takeaways were realizing that I had the combination of this king side attack with the play over here on the queen side.
Yeah.
Like being able to realize that pretty far in advance that I was looking at endgame conversions at this point while attacking his king. Because oftentimes your opponent may just think like, how do I not get checkmated? And you're also thinking like, how do I convert?
Yeah. Yeah, good game. Well done.
Thank you. All right, so that's round 3. We're both 2-1 so far.
Yep.
And if you want a Presta J update, he won round 2 and he drew round 3. So he's 2.5 out of 3.
As a team, we're 6 wins, 2 losses, and a draw as a team.
Yeah, we're +4.
Yeah.
So we're in good shape.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the round 4 recap.